Another question I get a lot is how do I add this table of data that has latitude and longitude to ArcMap? There used to be a great exercise in the textbook, but in this edition they've gotten rid of it. So let's walk through how to go about adding XY data or data with your latitude and longitude into ArcMap. So here we're looking at some data that I've downloaded from iNaturalist. If you have never used iNaturalist, it's a pretty great site for identifying plants and animals around you. You get to submit pictures and locations for data, so you can kind of see local biodiversity information. There's a lot more about it. I'll put the link up on Canvas, but it does have data that you can download for sightings of species, and you can filter it by location, by species, whatever you want. So I have downloaded the data for what did I download for? Fence lizards. So a bunch of different types of fence lizards, just because I see them everywhere. So I was curious what their distribution was in San Diego County. So the first thing I recommend doing is that whatever format that is downloaded from your data from the website is to save it as the older version of an Excel file if you're working in ArcMap. So this downloads as a CSV, and I've saved it as its Excel 97 to 2003 workbook. And make sure you save it somewhere you can find it again. You can also go through and delete any columns you don't actually need or that aren't interesting to you. So maybe I don't want the description column, or I don't need the taxon ID or anything like that. You could delete those fields in Excel. You can also delete them in ArcMap, but sometimes it's easier to do it in Excel. So we can go ahead, we'll save this. Oh, I forgot to show you. These are the two columns that we care about. These have our latitude and longitude. So they could be in here like they're in decimal degrees, or they might be in your a different coordinate system. As long as they're there, you can work with them and you can get them to display on the map. They may be called something else, they may be called X and Y, but as long as you have those and you know their location data, we can use them. So that's pretty simple because I have them labeled for us. So we can close out of here, and then we'll go into ArcMap. All right, so we can see I have a blank ArcMap here, and since I'm looking at lizards in San Diego County, I've created a geodatabase for this, and it's helpful if you have a base shapefile to use. So we can add in our, we can add in our county base. You can see San Diego County there. This is helpful to have, especially if this has projection information. It can make creating that XY data that much easier. So, okay, now we have our lizard data. We'll expand the plus sign, and you've got a bunch of options for adding your XY data in. So the easiest, one of the ways to start is by right-clicking and going to Create Feature Class from XY Table. I like this method because it adds it right into my geodatabase if I have one. You can also save it as a shapefile if you weren't using a geodatabase. So I can save this as lizards and hit save. Then I'll show you where that is in a second. So you have to check that your X and Y data is in the right column. So we have our X data as longitude, Y data as latitude. This is a common issue that will pop up, that you'll pick the wrong one for the X field and Y field. If your data, when you load it, it's like in the complete opposite place in the Earth's surface, try swapping the X and Y field. Then we can set our coordinate system. So right now, obviously, well maybe not obviously, our downloaded XY data does not have a coordinate system associated with it. It's just that non-spatial tabular file. One of the nice things about having our county file is we can click on the import and click on our county, and it will automatically give it the coordinate system of the features where we want it to display on. So we can go ahead from here and click OK. And this is where I changed where I was saving that file. So I clicked on the specify output feature, shapefile or feature class, the output location, called it lizards. Then we can go ahead and click OK. And now that you can see it added to our geodatabase, and we can just drop that right into the county, and fingers crossed, good. Everything shows up mostly on the county. Looks like we have a couple of placement errors. Let's see. You can go look at like the images they have. See, that's clearly not in the right location because it has it coded into the ocean, but this lizard is not on an ocean. So we can say that we can go through a bunch of these, but we can possibly argue that these just need to be deleted. So we could use the clip tool to delete those. All right, that's our first way. Right-clicking, create feature class from XY table. Another way you can display your XY data, let's get rid of this, is by adding your table directly into ArcMap. Remember, since it's a table, it won't pop anything up immediately. You'll have to, it's a non-spatial table. So from here, we can right-click on our table, go to display XY, let me show you that again. Right-click on our table, display XY data, check our latitude and longitudes in the right location. So this is telling it that it's putting it in this GCS North America in 1983. This could be because it's what we picked before. It could be because it's the data frame coordinate system. But if you wanted to change it for whatever reason, you could go to edit and import to get that import from our county data and add it that way. So we added that new coordinate system and imported it by clicking edit and then selecting it from import and the feature class we want to use the coordinate system from. Okay. So then we can click OK. And it's going to tell us it doesn't have an object ID field, and that's okay. We'll add it later. Saying you can export it later to add it. And we can see they get added nicely back where we wanted them. So now you'll see you have your this events layer. Now this events layer is a display layer. It is not a permanent layer. So if you wanted to save this into your geodatabase or into a different file, you do have to right-click Data, Export Data, find our geodatabase. We'll call this one Lizards 2. And then you can go from here. And so now you see that we have both of these are in the same geodatabase. And if we delete this file, we still have our lizards data saved. Versus if we just relied on that events file, it could disappear on us. Okay, our last way of adding that XY data is to, let me show you by going to a completely new and blank map. All right, let's say you didn't have this nice county shapefile. Let's say you just had our table. The best way, well, you could go right-click, create feature class. I'm going to drag it in because from here you'd be able to open the table if you hadn't already and kind of check it out, make sure it's the one you want to use, look at latitude and longitude, see if you could guess what coordinate system it's in, or if it's, sometimes it'll be in, not degrees, minutes, seconds, the other ones, the long ones, it's just long numbers. I'll put the name up somewhere on Canvas. Well, I'll show you where to find it. So if the coordinates are not in decimal degrees, it'd be good to know before you started this process. But you can. The thing to remember with XY data, if it's collected from a device that has a GPS tracker in it, like your phone, or from a GPS unit itself, it generally collects data in WGS 1984. So if you don't have the state or the county or the country or anything to help you import that data set, we can check our X and Y fields, go to edit, and we can search for that WGS 1984. But first, UTM coordinate systems are what I'm thinking of, those longer ones. Glad I remembered finally. Anyway, so we want WGS 84, so we can search for WGS. It's under geographic coordinate systems and just the plain WGS 84. And if we click OK, Again, it's giving us this warning because it's just the events field. You can see that it looks a little bit different because we're in a different projection than the state was. We're not in the GCS 1984, North American 1984. We're in WGS 1983, 84. Well, we're in the World Geographic System, or whatever it stands for. So if you just don't know where it is, don't really know what the correct coordinate system is, trying to use a existing shapefile and it's not getting, it's not looking the way you want it to, try going to a blank ArcMap window and importing it into that WGS format. This can solve a lot of errors. And then you can check that it's in the right location. If you're like, I don't know if that's still in the right spot. This kind of looks like San Diego County, so it's helpful. But we can add in a base map and make sure it's generally where it should be. So we can see we still have some off the coast, but it's all in San Diego County. It's not, on the equator or something. So those are the 3 ways to add XY data to your map.